The night hung heavy around me, a shroud of darkness that seemed to swallow the world whole. I gripped the steering wheel tightly, my knuckles white against the leather. The road stretched out before me, an endless ribbon of asphalt disappearing into the abyss. The only company I had was the rhythmic hum of the engine and the distant whisper of the wind. I glanced at the clock, 2:37 a.m. I had been driving for hours, the hypnotic dance of the yellow lines on the road threatening to lull me into a trance. My eyelids were heavy and I could feel the exhaustion seeping into my bones. But I couldn't stop. Not here, not now. The only light came from my headlights, painting a feeble path through the inky blackness. The shadows seemed to move, to shift and writhe just beyond the reach of the light. I told myself it was just my imagination, that fatigue was playing tricks on me. But deep down, I knew better. I came upon a small, forgotten town, its buildings standing like decrepit sentinels against the night. The streets were deserted, not a soul in sight. The windows of the buildings stared out like empty eye sockets, reflecting the pale glow of the moon. I shivered, suddenly feeling like an unwelcome intruder in this desolate place. I pressed on, the road winding its way through the heart of the town. It felt like I was driving through a ghost town, a place abandoned by time itself. The air grew colder and a sense of unease settled over me like a suffocating blanket. Then, I saw her. A figure, slight and hunched, stood at the side of the road. Her silhouette was barely visible, like a wisp of smoke against the darkness. I could feel her eyes on me, burning into my soul. As I approached, she raised a trembling hand, beckoning me to stop. I slowed the car, my heart pounding in my chest. What was she doing here, in the dead of night, in this forsaken place? Against my better judgment, I rolled down the window just a crack. "Are you all right?" I asked, my voice barely more than a whisper. Her face, weathered and etched with lines of sorrow, came into view. Her eyes were pools of darkness, devoid of any discernible emotion. "Please," she rasped, "help me. I need a ride." Every instinct in my body screamed at me to drive away, to leave this town and never look back. But something about her, something in the depths of those empty eyes, tugged at my conscience. Against my better judgment, I opened the door and she climbed in, her presence sending a chill through the car. She sat in the back seat, her form a shadowy silhouette against the night. "Thank you," she murmured, her voice like a distant echo. I resumed my journey, the unease settling deeper into my bones. The road ahead seemed to stretch on forever, an unending path into the abyss. I stole a glance at the rear-view mirror, but she was just a shapeless form, barely visible in the dim light. As the minutes turned to hours, the silence grew heavy, broken only by the occasional creak of the leather seats. I stole another glance at the clock, 3:47 a.m. Time seemed to warp and twist, as if the night itself held me in its grasp. Suddenly, a sound shattered the silence, a low, guttural moan that seemed to emanate from the very depths of the earth. I swerved, my heart thundering in my chest. The figure in the back seat remained still, untouched by the violent motion. I glanced back at her, my voice trembling. "What was that?" She turned to me, her eyes now pools of darkness and something else, something ancient and malevolent. "We're not alone," she whispered. The words hung in the air like a curse, and a sense of dread settled over me like a suffocating shroud. I felt eyes on me, unseen and malevolent, lurking just beyond the edge of the light. I drove faster, desperation clawing at my chest. The road seemed to stretch on endlessly, leading me deeper into the heart of the nightmarish unknown. The figure in the back seat seemed to dissolve, becoming one with the shadows. And then, just as suddenly as she had appeared, she was gone. The back seat sat empty, a void in the shape of a person. I slammed on the brakes, my heart pounding in my chest. I stepped out of the car, the night air cold against my skin. I scanned the empty road, but there was no sign of her. It was as if she had never been there at all. Fear gnawed at me, urging me to flee, to escape this cursed place. I turned back to the car, ready to drive away, but something caught my eye. In the distance, just beyond the reach of the headlights, I saw them. The eyes, countless and malevolent, staring out from the shadows. I fled, my footsteps echoing in the empty streets. The town seemed to stretch on forever, a labyrinth of darkness and despair. I didn't look back, didn't dare to see what lurked in the night. And still, to this day, I can feel their eyes on me, watching and waiting from the shadows, a haunting reminder of that fateful night.